Yeah,
How are you deciphering who the legitimate whistleblowers are from the quacks?
And it turned out he was telling a tall tale. And my military advisor at that time was at a bar, and he started talking about stuff that this guy knew absolutely was false.
If you're not looking at this with a skeptical eye for anybody, that's
Right.
listening, you should be.
Yeah, you
How
should.
are you deciphering who the legitimate whistleblowers are from the quacks?
First of all, we asked for them to give evidence of they were, who they were, where they were. We want to see a DD-214. We want to see records, and then we check them out. And there's someone who's in our team who has the ability to check them out through the system.
Okay.
Now, even with that, you could be tricked. The best I can do, now remember, we're not the U.S. government with trillions of dollars or the Pentagon with $700 billion. We're a volunteer organization, best we can do. But the other thing is good, because I've debriefed legitimate people for 30 years on this, literally over 1,000 people. Not all of them are in the archive because some of them never wanted their names given to me, but they were legit. So what I say is that if the story doesn't track, and and the other is if what they're sharing comports with the evidence from another source, but they don't know each other, there's no collusion. So then you say, okay, this gentleman in 1980 saw this. This guy in 2009 saw this. And it was essentially the same kind of operation, craft, what have you. They don't know each other. But they're very reluctant. They say, you're not going to believe this. This is what they all say. I said, trust me, I'll probably believe it. But then when you get a points of corroboration, so what I try to do is find multiple points of corroboration.
Okay.
Like we had like a dozen people who knew about the ET concerns, about the nuclear issue. So there's a whole area of multiple points of corroboration. And it's particularly useful when it's a similar event or company or facility, base, where they were there at different times and don't know each other. So then you don't have someone being able to match up their stories in some tall tale. So I have my own approach to this.
Okay.
But obviously we don't have at this point. Now the difference is that when we launch this RICO, civilian RICO action, we'll have subpoena power and also discovery. So we can go to these spaces. Now we'll have to find a federal judge who will certify it. We'll see.
I'm glad we went through that because, I mean, it is, it's tough to take somebody's word for things like this. And so
I
think
don't,
it's important to...
I do the best I can. Now, we almost were tricked by a guy back in 1997 who was coming to the briefings I set up for Congress back then, off-site at the Westin Hotel in Georgetown. And Edgar Mitchell was there. A bunch of fun people were there. And it turned out he was telling a tall tale. And my military advisor at that time was at a bar, and he started talking about stuff that this guy knew absolutely was false. So I had him escorted off the premises. So, you basically get one bite at the apple with us at telling something that ends up to be nonsense. So that's kind of our policy. But we, because we don't have any kind of our budget for all of this has been volunteers and a few donations and people who are devoted to it. So we can do only what we can do with the assets we have.
Well, you got a lot of assets. I mean, we talked about your crowdfunding capabilities earlier, and those are quite impressive.
Right.
So
yeah, we do the best we can, you know. But I always tell people I'm confident of the ones that we're putting forward, and of the ones we have in the archive, which have not come forward. And listen, anyone listening, you can come forward and only give information to me that you think is useful. If you want to go to the Arrow process and be protected under the new law and give your testimony, we can do that. If you want to come out publicly, we can do that. It's really up to the person to determine if they were in special forces or Lockheed scientists or whatever, how they want to do it. We just want as many people to come forward because there's strength in numbers. But here's the other thing, Shawn, we really need. We need to continue to grow the current state-of-the-art knowledge of where facilities are, operations, code numbers, code names, all that, because that's how the investigators, and if necessary, people who will bite force, if necessary, get these projects under control.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.